and welcome to this week's Fibro section. Bling, 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 bling. This week's Fibro section is going to be on guilt. This has been requested by Irene, so thank you, Irene, for your request. But I have been talking to some other people about this as well, because I think it affects quite a few people. I'm sorry if the camera feels like it's wobbling. I'll try not to touch the table because you are currently balanced on Mark's Easter egg. Not the egg, but the box, because the egg would be impossible, but you know. Right, let's get on with it. I've done quite a lot of research on this, so this isn't coming, some of it's going to come from my experience, but most of it is from research. And if you can hear crashing and thingies in the background, that's the girls making their lunch. Right, so excuse me for looking at my notes again. Guilt is a common reaction to fibro and ME. Some people blame themselves for getting sick, thinking they might have avoided becoming ill if they had lived differently. I do that a lot. So now I'm just going to tell you a bit about how I feel about that. So if you have not seen it, I will link above the vlog where I explain how I got fibromyalgia and ME, and how I got it was through an infection in my bowel, and I was in hospital for a week. They didn't know what was wrong with me, and it was very touch and go what they were going to do with me, and it was horrendous. And from that is I don't think, see, I'm quite a firm believer that everybody can have some degree of fibromyalgia inside them, but it's just what happens to you, like an infection or a trauma. I had both, that brings it to the surface, if that makes sense. ME, again, I think is similar because they're both connected. So, but yes, I always looked at that and thought, could I have prevented getting ill? Could I have prevented being so traumatized by what was going on? Well, no, I couldn't actually, because having an infection around my bowel, that wasn't my fault. That's just something that happened, and it happened slowly because I started getting ill when we were on our last holiday to America, and then it was when I came back that it all happened. So that wasn't anything I did, it wasn't my fault. And the trauma of the hospital, that wasn't my fault either, you know. It was very, very traumatic. So yeah, I'd say I did blame myself and try and think, is there something I could have done to avoid it becoming ill? But there isn't, and I think it's just your mindset really on that. So there's a lot of guilt around fibro and ME. What can we do to ease the burden? So that's the main thing I'm concentrating on for you today. If becoming undependable bothers you, you can use guilt over cancelling plans or commitments, which could give us the encouragement to pace ourselves better. It could lead to being more consistent in pacing, therefore being more dependable. Now, when I read this comment, I thought, it's not all about pacing. So sometimes I'll have a flare-up for no reason and I can't even think what it's for, or it might be due to the weather, it might be due to stress. So it's not all to do with pacing, but pacing is a big part of life with fibro and ME. So it's, you know, doing a little job, having a rest, or splitting a job up into a big job into small sections. Pacing is a massive part of it, and becoming dependable or undependable, I think when you have fibro and ME, that's a given. You're going to be, you don't know what you can attend and what you can't. And I always try to say to my friends or my family, if we've made a plan, you know, as long as I'm well and fine, then that's good. If I'm not, we'll have to reschedule it. And I would say they're all fine with that, because they understand that I can't, you know, I do my best. Like, so if I know I'm going out, I will try and rest as much as possible the day before and do the pacing thing. So I do that, to be fair. But like I say, you can't always predict when you're going to have a flare or what has caused it. Even the excitement of the thought of going out can cause a flare up, which is catch-22, isn't it? Right. Guilt is often triggered by perfectionism. Holding ourselves to standards that don't fit with our new capabilities. Rather than adjusting our standards to meet our new limits, we may measure our performance against either the person we used to be or the person we had hoped to be. Definitely. You can reduce guilt by adjusting your expectations so they match your new level of functioning. Do a reality check of your expectations. Right, so now they're asking you to do this, so you can do it with me if you like. So get a pen and a piece of paper. Go and do it now. Go and get your, pause this. Go and get your pen and paper. Right, if you got your pen and paper, on the left side of a piece of paper, so you have two columns, so draw a line down the middle, and on the left side, list all of the things that you no longer do, but you think you should do. For example, make elaborate meals, or, you know, for dinner guests or whatever. Drive the kids to all their activities. Go to work. That's a big one, isn't it? And on the right side, write your judgment of whether their expectation is realistic. Now I'm going to show you my list, because I did this. I only did 4 things. Probably could have done more. But what I did find doing it was it kind of depressed me, because I was like, oh no, I can't do that anymore, and it was getting me down. So what I did was, instead of just saying no, that's not realistic, I added what I do now instead. So not that I just can't do that and it's not realistic, but what I do now. So let me show you. Right, so this is my list. Things I should do, I could do before. So I used to go to jazzercise, water aerobics. I used to do loads of exercise classes. Is that realistic now? No. I now do seated yoga once a week and have started Joe Wicks workouts each morning. So that's not realistic. I have tried to go back to water aerobics, nearly passed out 4 times. So that's not doable, but now this is. The same with working a paid job. I had to give up my job, would love to work again, but can't go currently, and I do YouTube instead. So some people might find other things that they do instead, like just keeping up with the house is enough, isn't it, for fibro and ME. Go to all the girls' extra activities. No. I try to go once in a while, but evenings are not good for me. So most of the girls' activities are in the evening. Obviously, Holly can drive herself now, which is great. But I've been to one of Poppy's before, and it was just really hard. So do more at home. No. Have to pace and have rests. So my expectations is that I should do more at home, but the realism is I can't, because I have to pace and have the rest. So that is my expectation. That is the realism. Part of the process of adjustment is changing our internal dialogue or self-talk so that it supports our efforts to live well with illness rather than generating guilt. One person says that she used to chastise herself for taking a nap. Her self-talk was, "You are weak and lazy." Now, when she takes a nap, she says, "I am helping my body to be healthy and recover." See how the difference is there? So that horrible, "you are weak and lazy" thought, that negative thought, has been turned into that positive, "I am helping my body to be healthy and recover." It's changing that mindset. Similarly, when feeling tired, you can say, "This fatigue is not my fault. It came with CFS. So I don't need to feel guilty about not doing everything I used to." Or, "I didn't ask for fibro, so why should I feel shame when it prevents me from doing something?" It's very true, isn't it? You never asked for this. You never asked to be ill, so why should you feel guilty about it? You can change your habitual ways by thinking about yourself to make them more accurate and more friendly. So it's just changing the mindset, and it's going to take a long time. It's taken me years to change my mindset, and still now I struggle. So it is a work in progress. When feeling guilty, shift your attention. We can control how we respond when feelings of guilt arrive. If the feeling is not productive, it may be better to respond to guilt by turning our attention elsewhere. Tell yourself things like, this isn't my fault, or these feelings will pass as long as I don't allow myself to act on them. So it's just distraction. So, you know, if you're feeling guilty about something, try and distract your mind, try and think positively and go and do something else. Even if it's watching something that you love to watch, just do something. And praise yourself as well. Educating others. This is a really important one. In addition to adjusting your expectations for yourself, others' expectations of you will have to change too, because they can't expect that you can do the same as you used to do. Now, the people that you live with will understand that completely. Maybe your close family, like my mum, Mark's mum, they understand. Maybe close friends would understand. And like I say, Angela, one of my best friends, she has only ever known me ill. So she never knew how I was before. So she's always known my limits and what I can and can't do. But maybe other friends don't. But you just got to educate them and say, look, I can't do that, but I can do this instead. Educate the people around you, making sure they understand what your limitations are due to fibro and ME. Exactly what I just said. And if you're struggling to try and tell them, physically tell them, then write it down. Text them, or message them, or write a letter, or print off information off the internet on it and see if they are interested in reading it. I've done so many different ways to educate my family and friends. Learn assertiveness. Standing up for yourself is important. For example, if going out for the day and someone suggests carrying it on back at someone's, but you are too tired and need a rest, say you are sorry, but you can't do that and you need to rest, but suggest to meet up another day. So don't just dismiss it completely. Maybe just compromise and say, look, I can't do that today, but I can do that another day. And I'm sure they'd be fine with that if they understand. While there may have been a traumatic event that triggered your fibro, it is not your fault. You didn't bring it on yourself, and feeling guilty and thinking you may have been able to do something to avoid it is futile and a waste of valuable energy. So don't even go there. When you are forced to witness the people you love working overtime to do extra household chores and take over many roles in the home, it will lead to feelings of guilt. This is me massively, and I think this is the same for Irene. When you're sitting there and you're watching like your husband or your other half doing all the jobs that you want to join in with or you want to help with but you can't, there's a massive feeling of guilt. Massive. But we've got to change that because they're not bothered. If you spoke to them and said, do you think that I'm lazy by sitting here and not helping you? They'd be like, no, you can't do it. And Mark tells me off as well. Like, I tried to pick up a plant pot that was quite heavy the other day and he said, what are you doing? You know that your wrists will hurt afterwards. So they do know. They know our limitations. They know what we can. It's us. It's us that are feeling guilty. So it's us that have to change our mindset. But guilt is a sign that you have a conscience. And it's letting you know that. You know, it's letting you know that you've got a conscience. If someone went around and didn't care, then you wouldn't have that conscience. It's like Jiminy Cricket from Pinocchio, isn't it? The secret is to control these feelings so that they do not become destructive, and that's really important. I think the one about work is my main one, not working. And when I had my counselling, she said to me so many times, what do you do now to contribute to society that you maybe didn't before when you were working? So I said, well, I manage the house more, which I didn't do before. I do my YouTube channel. I'm a mum. You know, I'm probably a better mum than I was because I was juggling so many things at the same time. I make my craft. There's quite a few things that I bring to society other than a paid job. But for me, it's the payment that's the problem as well. So I know I get PIP, which I'm very lucky, but if I didn't have that, I don't know how we'd cope. So there is always the feeling of guilt for not working, which I am the only one that can overcome that. So I have to change my mindset completely to stop it becoming destructive. I also live now by positive affirmations. So I'm going to link in the description some resources that you can buy, like positive affirmation books or notelets or whatever they are. There's some where you can get them put on your desktop and just take one each day and read it. So I'll try and link a few of them for you. But you can make your own as well, which I did. It definitely helps to change your mindset. And Louise Hay, I know I've mentioned her before, but her books on loving yourself are so good. You can get them on Kindle as well, and I don't know about audio. You'd have to check that. But I'll try and link a few of her books for you in the description as well. And definitely check them out. And what I did was I wrote down all my positive affirmations from Louise Hay's books. And I actually made the family and friends little positivity jars. So I cut all the positive affirmations up and I folded them up and put them in a jar so that every night they could take one out and read it. So it's really important, really important. And that's the only way you're going to combat guilt, is by changing your mindset. But we have a new normal now that we have to learn to respect. And that's the end of it, isn't it? I mean, you would think that with fibro and ME, why should I respect it? Why should I respect something that's made me feel so ill and changed my life in so many ways? But that's your life now. That is your life. And you've got to respect what you can and can't do. And that's the hardest pill to swallow. But you will do. You will get there with support and all of the encouragement. If you haven't got the encouragement at home, I do feel for you. My heart goes out to you. And all I can say is that friends in that situation are really important. And or family, if you haven't got family, then friends. It's really important to reach out to people. So that's a whole new video anyway. Support, that's a completely different video. But as for guilt, it is all about changing your mindset. And write your list, keep your list, stick it to the fridge, stick it somewhere, and keep reminding yourself, and maybe write yourself a list of positive affirmations next to each negative thing, so that you can keep saying them to yourself every time that you have this feeling of guilt. Keep saying these positive affirmations to yourself, and it will help, I promise. Anyway, if you've enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to leave a nice comment, or let us know how you deal with your guilt. Let us know what your worst guilt is that you feel and how you overcome that. That would be great. And I will see you all on Saturday for another weekly In Isolation. Woo! Take care. Love you lots. Bye.